everybody out there, you're tuned in to 91.8 The Fan. You're in my corner, and I have a very special guest in the corner. Would you like to unveil your secret identity to the masses?
My name is Kitty Carlisle, and you're listening to Tell the Truth. Wow, I felt that was great. It was like I was being revealed as the secret guest on To Tell the Truth. So the first question comes from Kitty Carlisle. Is it bigger than a bread box? So now that I've lost about half the audience who has no idea what To Tell the Truth was or who Kitty Carlisle was, it was a game show in the 1950s and 60s. It was in black and white, and they used to say, panel, please sign in. And they would sign in, and then they would say, special mystery guest, please sign in. But the panel had already put on their blindfolds, and they would ask questions to try and figure out who the mystery guest was. So why don't you ask me some questions and see if people can figure out who I am?
Well, I think our listeners have a little cheat sheet on the website, but if you want to play along, don't go to the website.
I
It'll be
see.
bad.
So if they're sitting there listening to this on the website, they are such losers because they have these newfangled things called cell phones that you can listen to the show on, and you can listen, on your iPads, and you can listen
And your
on
PlayStation
your
portables
PlayStation, your
and your
Xbox.
Wii's.
Your Wii. You can listen on your computer without going to the website. You can get iTunes. I mean, there's a million ways to get this show. But if you're a loser and you're on the website and you already know who I am, that's such a loser move.
I agree.
But all right, go ahead. All right.
I like to torture them. Well,
All
okay.
right.
So to reveal your
So
identity.
here's how this plays. The way the show used to work, you had to ask questions that were answerable with yes or no. You couldn't say like, who are you, or where do you work, or what are you known for? So you had to ask questions that were yes or no, like are you a Democrat? Like that. Or is what you do considered acting, that kind of thing. So you have to ask questions that are yes or no. You got it?
All right, I will do my best to play
Okay.
along.
Now here's the real funny part about all this is you already know who I am, but you're going to ask questions pretending as though you don't.
All right, that might be a little bit more difficult.
Well, this is
But
your opportunity to be creative about your questions. Go ahead.
oh boy, now I'm worried. This is what you get when you only get 3 hours of sleep. Congratulations.
I get it. Thank you.
Well, all right. So I guess one of the first questions I would like to ask is what you do considered creative.
Yes.
Um, how? Oh, I can't ask how. This is why I didn't take improv when I was in high school. Go me. So for the listeners out there, do you do commercial work?
I'm going to stop this for just a second. I'm going to give you some advice. This is going to turn into a coaching session, okay? You've said this 2 times now. You've said hello out there, and you've said listeners out there. In the 1950s, a guy by the name of Arthur Godfrey changed everything because he started talking to his audience one at a time. Yes, there are plenty of people listening, sometimes more than one at a time, sometimes more than one at a time in the same location. But if you talk directly to a listener, you make a connection that is completely different from if you say, hello, listeners out there, or hello, audience, or hello, generic group of people that might be listening to the show. Remember, they want to hear you because you've got this cute little sexy voice, and you're a gamer girl, and you've got all this, you've got the guts to put a show on the air. They want to connect with you, and you want to connect with one person at a time. So when you talk to people on the radio, don't say you out there or you all of you or the audience. Just say you or your need or your preference, or refer to one person at a time, because that's how they're listening to the show. Yeah, they may be total losers and are listening to the show on the website where my name is revealed, loser, but it's one person at a time, and you will go so much farther if this is what you want to do. Does that make sense?
I understand that completely. I feel a little bit bad
Fantastic.
for our live chat, however, because oftentimes I will refer to our live chat by the
Okay,
nickname they're using. So,
that's fine. You can certainly refer to a group of people assembled in a room, a chat room, a physical room, whatever, as, but that's not how people usually consume the show. They're usually by themselves. Now, you generate certain social connections when you're in a chat room or you're, on a Facebook chat, or you're on, God forbid, an AOL, Pinay Pinoy room. So, yes, if you're referring to a collective, the special people that do the chatting while the show is live, that's fantastic. But I'm talking about you making reference to the person listening to the show. And I want you to just fire on all cylinders. I want you to be super successful. I want you to be great and happy, and that's one thing that will help, okay?
Well, I appreciate your advice, and I'm sure that can actually go into my next yes or no question. Are you a teacher?
Yes,
Because it certainly seems
I
like it.
am. Yes. The answer is yes.
I was going to ask when, and I keep failing at the yes or no. Um, in
So when
terms,
you want to ask when, you can say, did you start teaching before or after 1912? You can do something that sort of gives them a deadline.
well, even my
And the answer to
mom
that
isn't
question is
that old.
yes. Yeah.
I figure if my mom isn't that old, then you're not that old.
Oh, your mom.
Yes.
All right. So what's going on?
Well, for the listeners out there, and once again to all the people in the IRC chat who keep asking me about this, because I've had quite a few people being like, wait, you didn't start with the basics, because apparently that is a common thing on the show. A lot of people want to know out there, what is your, how'd you get started in the business? I mean, acting is something not a lot of people fall into. Maybe, they start doing it in high school and then they kind of just do it once or twice and then they're like, that was an easy grade.
Yeah. This is going to be interesting if we never mention my name until the very end of the interview. Let's see if we can get away with that. So I had, an early intro to acting that then, because of this traumatic experience, I was in a play as an 8-year-old where it was Peter Pan, and I played Michael, Wendy's little brother. He's the one that wears the top hat and carries the cane, and it has the
Ah,
spectacles.
yes.
So we go off to Never Never Land, and the theater that we were doing this in actually had wires. They had a wire rig. And the day they were handing out costumes, I got there kind of late, and I got a pair of oversized leotards. Is that the stockings that you wear? Are those
Yes.
leotards? Okay.
Or
So
tights
mine
or,
were
or
for an adult male, and I was 8 years old. So they pinned them to my undershirt or to my nightshirt, and they. So apparently, at some point, as I was getting ready to go out on stage, my pin came loose, and when they did lift us up to go to Never Never Land, my leotard slipped off of me and went wafting down towards the stage, and I was exposed to the audience.
that sounds like the most horrible
It
intro
was
to
the
being
most,
in a
because I
play.
didn't know. I didn't know. I heard people gasping, and I thought, wow, they're really impressed that we're flying off to Never Never Land. This is kind of cool. And then when I found out what was going on, I was mortified, obviously. And I actually didn't do much acting for a long, long time. Not because of that, just because I got into other things like computers and, uh, you know, uh, I worked at NASA. I had a scientific journey for a while there, and then came back to performing arts in radio. And then for the longest time, I would get hired when I was doing morning radio. I would get hired as an actor because I had a morning radio show, and they were hoping that I would promote the play that I was in on the morning show. It wasn't because of any acting skill that I had. It was because I had an audience, and they wanted to promote the play or the thing. I did a lot of work at the Kennedy Center as a narrator. So, mostly it wasn't because they could have gotten any narrator in town they wanted, but for me, I would do shows like the tribute to John Philip Sousa on the 4th of July, and I would be the guy saying, and John Philip Sousa was commissioned in the Army in 1897 or whatever it was. And, that's why they would hire me, because I was on the air, not because I had any incredible acting talent. It wasn't until a long time later, about 5 years ago actually, that I got my first what people would consider a notable acting booking, and that was as Eric Doyle on Heroes. So Heroes was my first real paid acting gig, and it was awesome, and it was groundbreaking, and being the puppet master on Heroes changed my life tremendously.
I always think it's
And
interesting to hear about people who have a radio background and who stick with radio for so long, and then they finally break into, a major role, and they're just like, it was amazing. How did I not do that sooner?
well, here's the thing: radio has its own set of requirements and skills and uh, as I teach my voiceover classes here in Los Angeles and up in San Francisco and on the web, um, I spend a lot of time talking about the fact that performers are performers are performers, and whatever sort of channel you're performing on, you're still a storyteller. Whether you're on camera doing drama or comedy, whether you're doing a commercial, whether you're doing voiceover in a studio, the only differences really are technical, right? So how you play a microphone is technically different from how you play a camera and how you play a live audience. But the storytelling skills are all exactly the same. And actually, one of the classes that I teach is called Mutual Muscles. And it's all about identifying those things that you use in all the different categories of performance, and also identifying the things that are different about all the different categories of performance and celebrating those. But remembering that if you choose to be a storyteller, you have the whole world as a performer. If you choose to be a particular, YouTube phenom, and don't really get any storytelling skills down, then you're left with being a YouTube phenom, and that's it. So, yeah, the idea that people in radio find it hard to break into on camera is because often they try to apply the same techniques that are used in radio on camera, and the first one that will kill them is the fact that they're too loud. On radio, if you were to walk into a room where a radio show was going on and you had all the DJs and the danger boys and the producers and the traffic people and the news people all wearing headphones, they're often yelling at each other because they're trying to get over the other person. They raise their voices. And that doesn't work on camera because the size of the shot dictates how loud you are and how you deliver your lines. Often if you're on set, if you were to be even just 10 feet away from the two main characters, if it's an extreme close-up or a tight shot, a tight two-shot, it'd be hard for you to actually hear what they were saying because they'd both be talking so softly. When the shot is that close, it's the viewer then is close to the action, and they don't expect to be overwhelmed with the volume. So that's one thing that's hard for people from radio to understand because everything's the same, whether they're yelling, whether they're crying, whether they're laughing, it's all very loud.
I've also actually heard of people who are in radio who have sort of like a sing-song sort of tone to their voice, and that kind of carries
Like
into
you just
acting.
did?
Yes, like I totally just did it because it was
Right.
there
So
in the
that's up.
subconscious.
Yeah, it's up talking. What you did was it was up talking, and up talking is not isolated to the United States. If you listen to someone from Australia, when they're explaining something to you, they will often end their sentences up, and they'll try to tell you where to go, and everything will be that, even though it's not a question, right? So it's not, only in the United States that people uptalk. It's become the way people speak regionally and to each other to try and connote importance, to try and make sure people understand what they're saying, to actually ask a question, and so on. And I'm fascinated with the way people speak sometimes. So forgive me if I. And here's something that I just realized: I have no idea what your name is.
My name is
Did you
Jackie.
identify?
Yes,
Right, I know, Jackie. What?
Jackie Florian.
And did you identify yourself as such at the top of the show, or do people just know who you are?
At this point, after doing it for 3, 4 years, at the beginning of my show technically is at noon Pacific Standard Time, and the interview's usually at 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So they've heard
Uh-huh.
me for the past 2 hours.
Okay. So when you come back, are people tuning in at that point, or are they only tuning in and listening from the top of the show straight through?
Generally, the most of my audience is in at right when the show starts,
Uh-huh.
because the way that we work here, since we're all online based, is through social media. So generally, we're notifying all of our social
What is
media.
this social media you're talking about? What is this social media? What does this mean, this social media?
Well, basically, we're notifying our Facebook and Twitter fans and Tumblr fans that a new DJ is starting their shift. So fans of that show are generally tuning in right when that show starts. There's actually
Gotcha.
very little crossover with our audience, and which is sad, you guys. You should listen to Elk's show. He's next on the Revolution, or you should listen to Zero's show. He's before me with his show, whatever he does. It's probably wacky and crazy and probably
Great
inappropriate.
cross promotion. Great cross promotion. What did you say your name was again? Jackie?
Jackie Florian, yes.
Jackie. Great cross promotion, Jackie. Uh-huh.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Well,
All
now,
right.
once
So go ahead.
I was going to say, once you got that major role, how did you see your career changing from there?
Well, it was interesting because I was only supposed to do one episode of that show. I don't know if you are a Heroes fan, if you watched the show at all. Yes,
I
no?
I've actually seen bits and pieces because every time I go to my cousin's house, especially her in-laws' house, they're always watching that show. So I've never gotten to like sit
So
down and watch from the beginning.
here's what I heard you say. Whenever I go to my husband's house, do you not live with your husband?
No, my cousin's in-laws' house.
Oh, your cousin's in-law.
Yes.
I heard husbands, and I'm like, she doesn't live at her husband's house? She just goes there
I'm not
occasionally?
married. I'm sorry.
I'm not married. Okay. So, yeah. So, the first episode I did on Heroes, I was in my puppet theater, and I had captured the woman that turned out to be Claire's biological mother, Meredith Gordon. And also, when Claire and her stepmom tried to come save Meredith Gordon, I captured them as well, and I had them sit around a table and play Russian roulette. And at the end of that, what you saw on television was Claire healing herself, which is, pretty common for Claire because that was her superpower, standing up behind me and grabbing a leg of the chair that she had busted when she was shot and fell over, and hitting me across the head and sending me back to prison, right? Knocking me out and sending me back to prison.
Fun
What
times.
she was huh?
Fun times.
It was fun times. Actually, Hayden Panettiere actually hit me in the head with the chair leg. When you see me get hit on the show, I actually got hit on the show. She forgot she was supposed to hit me on the shoulder, and she whacked me in the head, so it hurt. But anyway, you learn right then, don't argue with the lead in the show. Just be nice. It was an accident. Don't worry about it. But what was supposed to happen was she was supposed to pick up the gun from the table and splatter my brains all over the set. Which, by the way, when an actor gets his brains splattered all over the set, you get extra pay for that, for that death. So it's kind of cool that when people get killed on, when they actually get killed on set, they get extra pay.
If only that worked in video games and anime.
Exactly. So here's the thing. I started shooting on a Monday, July 9th, 2008, at 7 o'clock in the morning. And by the end of the day, we had shot the dance scene and we had shot the breakfast and dinner scenes. By the end of the day, the people that were writing that episode of the show and the producer who was in charge of those writers came back to set. We were at a remote location in East Los Angeles. Came back to set and said, we have some new sides for you for Wednesday. And Wednesday was the day that I was supposed to get shot. And, I was kind of happy that I got an episode and that it was going to be top of show, which means I get, like $7,000 to do the show. I mean, it was all really fun, right? And it was really rewarding. And what turned out was they were so happy with the stuff that we did on Monday morning, the breakfast scene, the dinner scene. They were so creeped out by it that they went back and they said to the Brain Trust at Heroes Central, Tim Kring and the whole crew, listen, we got to rewrite the ending of his episode. We should keep him. He's really creepy. So what was supposed to be just one episode ended up 3 seasons on Heroes, and I really, I can't say enough about how that experience changed my life because it led to me working on now 35 other series on television and films, studio films and audiobooks and obviously commercial stuff, and it was a game changer, and it happened like a second act in my life, long after a 30-year career in radio and long after a very long career in technology. So, yeah, it was when you asked the question, how did that affect things? It was like night and day.
Think about it, because that must have been just this huge ego boost, this big pat on the back that they would rewrite the character based on your performance.
Yeah, well, I was pretty stupid about it. The first thing that I blurted out was, "Wait a minute, I don't get to do my death scene? I rehearsed my death scene the whole weekend." I was so dumb about this stuff, right? So, yeah, it
Well,
was an ego boost.
maybe one day you'll get to splatter
Oh,
your
I've
brain
had
all the
lots
way.
of death scenes. I've been drenched by blood, dying as a Russian mob guy. I've believe me, I've been rigged up. I just died in an episode of The Mentalist that's going to air here in a month or two, and man, it was a spectacular death. It was like one of those deaths where you go, "Wow, I hope my kids don't see this because they won't like it."
Well, I have to say, do you have a favorite death scene?
Yeah, I think that'll be it. I mean, when you see it, you'll go, "Wow, did he do his own stunts?" And the answer to that would be, I'm not saying.
Well, I'm
My
sure
stunt
if
guy, my stunt guy in both cases, in both the Heroes thing and the show that I just did, they're just great, and they look like me, fat and bald.
well, that means that if there's any fat and bald people out there, you can be a stunt double. Go for it.
There you go.
Yes. Or you can be a computer programmer, because most of the bald people I know are computer programmers. I don't know why.
Really?
Yes, it's
Well, I
extremely
did that.
strange.
I did that for a long time, and I certainly know my way around web development and WordPress and code, and I actually wrote the very first best-selling HTML book called Learn HTML on the Macintosh back in the 90s. So technology and performing have always been sort of parallel in my life, and this set of voiceover classes that I teach, I think has been as well received as it has. We've won a very prestigious award, national award, for the last 4 years as best voiceover class. And I think it's because I teach three different things. I teach the performance, I teach the business side of things, and I teach the technology that is so necessary for people to be successful. In any performing arts these days, you have to be web savvy. I feel so bad for older actors and for poorer actors who have not had the advantage of being trained in technology to the point where they're proficient at it, because if you don't have that training, it's almost as difficult as if you don't have training as an actor to get a job, because of the way jobs are auditioned for and are booked. The technology is just so important. So I look around me at my fellow web developers and WordPress people, and I think, huh, 4 out of the 5 people have hair. I don't. Maybe Jackie is living in a shell somewhere.
Well, I do live in the hermit cave, as my mom calls it. But
Uh,
it's interesting that you mentioned that, because a lot of the guests that we have on, actually, they don't tweet, or they don't Facebook, or they don't update their fan base on what they're doing, just because they're unfamiliar with it, or they're just starting to get into it. And that doesn't even count having their own website for marketability. So I can understand that. We've had a lot of experience with that.
yeah. Well, the website that I teach at that talks about my live classes, and by the way, anybody listening, if you wake up at 2:30 in the morning in a cold sweat because your life is just horrible, and the only way to fix it, the only way to redeem yourself is to become a voiceover actor, well, you can start at 2:31 at my website at votogogo.com. There's a free getting started in voiceover class that you can take, and then there are 36 other classes in the curriculum that run the gamut from commercials to animation to audiobooks, 3 different kinds of audiobooks, the technology, the sound software, the microphones, and the business, the marketing, the social networking, the websites like ACX and Voice 123, and being proficient at all of those things. So you can take all those classes online. So it's kind of cool.
Perfect. Well, we have a lot of would-be and aspiring voice actors out there. But remember, folks, you can't
Aren't you in
just
the
do
Boston
anime.
area?
I am not in the Boston area. I'm in Viva Las Vegas.
Oh, you're in Las Vegas. Okay.
Yes.
Because I'm going to be, I think, if I can schedule this, okay, I'm going to be at the Rhode Island Comic Con teaching voice work and how to get into the business. And it's basically going to be the Getting Started class that I teach online with some tweaks for gaming stuff because doing video games is a very specific type of work. We actually do a class called Animation in Video Games. We talk about everything, not just the characters, but also the efforts and the ways to protect your voice and how to find auditions and how to do union and non-union if you want to be in SAG. You know, there's not a lot of union work, but it's really good pay. So, yeah, I mean, you know, doing different categories of voice work. I mean, who would have thought that you could go online and get audiobook work and get paid hundreds of dollars an hour to do audiobook work? You can over at ACX. So it's great. I mean, the whole business is changing, and I think I've been really, really lucky and fortunate to have had a background in technology as well as a background in performing because it's positioned me perfectly to be able to take advantage of the casting sites and the casting process and you know, just everything about this business here in Los Angeles and in New York. And, you know, it's been great to have had that background and to have that advantage.
Well, it's quite possible that Chris, who's my producer, might be able to attend. He is in the area, in the New Hampshire area, so he's completely opposite of the world for me.
Oh, that's why I thought you were in the Northeast, because when he called to book me on the show, it came from there. So, okay, I understand.
Yes,
And
most of our
I'm not
staff is all
100%
separated.
sure. I'm not 100%. Yeah, I'm not 100% sure I'm going to be able to be there, but I'm trying to work it out schedule-wise. So, but at any time, you can always come and take that class on the website. It's vo the numeral 2 gogo.com/start. And I actually interact with you during the classes. You send stuff in, and I reply to you. And if you know, like you'll submit a piece of audio if you have home equipment, and I'll give you feedback on it. So. You know, the class is interactive. It isn't just an automated lesson by lesson class, so it's actually pretty cool. So
Well, for the fans out there who want to check that out, you're free to do so because we're going to go on a short break here on 91.8 The Fan, or if you want to plan out your convention trip, which, hey, that's always fun to be stuck in a car with 8 smelly people, go ahead because we'll be right back here on 91.8 The Fan where we play everything you want and nothing you don't. Hey, everybody out there, you're tuned in to 91.8 The Fan. You're still in my corner, and my special guest is still here. At least I think you're alive.
I am still here.
And we still don't know your identity, but we'll find out by the end.
Oh,
Someday.
really? All right. If you want me to tell people, I can. I think they've kind of figured it out. Everybody who's in the chat room has already been revealing it left and right.
Yeah, actually, they have. They've just
Yeah,
been linking to the website and cheating.
yeah. So my name is David H. Lawrence the 17th.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you on the show, and it's nice to talk to somebody who has dwarfed me in experience so much because it's a learning experience for me to be able to talk to you.
Dwarfed you?
Yes,
How have I dwarfed you?
because you have like 40 years of experience. I have like 3.
Well, that's okay. I mean, you know, here, you know what? You're far enough in to know, like when you first started off, it's like you were so, like you didn't even know what you didn't know, right?
Right.
And now you have a lot more experience under your belt. Now you're even open to new ideas and new things. It's like, I really don't even know what I don't know, and that's great. So, and believe me, once you get on for a while, unless you're really, really happy with where you are, and you don't really want to go any further, you're going to get jaded, and you're going to want more out of life. And I love that. I want people to want more all the time.
I want more out of life, but that means I want more video games. I'm not sure about my career at this point, but you know,
Well,
Priorities
that
got to
means you
start a
want
little
more money,
small.
right? That that means you want more money.
Yes, I think everyone
Yeah,
does.
we were talking off the air about one of my pet peeves when it comes to actors, performers, etc. Is they get so wrapped up in the idea that they have to build their lives around the performance and the art of things that they forget that to be safe and to have options and to have the freedom to do what they want to do art-wise, they have to be safe financially. And I can't tell you how many of my students and clients, and I've had thousands of them over the last few years. Uh, I've beaten that whole notion of art versus commerce out of them and beaten into them, hopefully, that to make money doing what we're doing is why we're in this business. Yes, we're here for the art, but if we're not here for the commerce, then we won't be here for the art very long. We'll have to figure out how to make our living somewhere else. Excuse me. And so that's the big part of teaching the business side of things that I think a lot of acting schools and voiceover schools completely forget. In their effort to show you how to be a very deep-voiced, well-read script reader, they forget that, A, it's all about storytelling, and sometimes it's not about being a deep-voiced reader, and B, it's about getting paid well for it. So, like when you were telling me that, this is your career and that you do this for a living, and you didn't seem at all embarrassed by that, that really made me happy, because the idea that people are out there doing things to support their, Arts Jones or to support their acting career, how about working towards being paid to do what you do and not having to be a tutor or a bartender or a waitress or a personal assistant or whatever, but actually making money from your craft the way all of your heroes do. When you look at the people that you say, boy, if I could be like him or like her, if I could have his or her career, that would be great. Well, they make money at what they do. And I don't want you to be sad about that or embarrassed about that or feel bad about that. You should work towards that, because that's really when you know you've made it, in that you can support yourself with your passion and your job. And I will stop proselytizing at this point and just let you go.
Well, I kind of have to wonder if for actors that mentality develops because, there's that dream of moving to Los Angeles and it's going to be hard and you don't know anyone and you have to
Okay,
get.
stop right there. Stop right there. You just made some big assumptions. I'm going to move to Los Angeles. Okay, that's factual. You either move to Los Angeles or you don't, right?
Right.
It's going to be hard. Is it? Are you
I'm
sure?
not exactly
It
sure, but most of the time
it
I hear
might
that
be.
people struggle when they move to
Sure.
Los Angeles, so I was taking a hypothetical
Right.
approach.
And most of the time you're absolutely correct. But if you make some smart decisions when you get here, and even before you get here, I have another website that I've been memorializing all of the little questions that people have for me as an actor, called actinganswers.com. And there's nothing to buy there. There's no lessons. It's all questions that people have asked me about the business and my answers. And there's a couple of articles in there. What do I do when I land in LA? Part 1, Part 2, and Part 3. And in particular, people can come here and waste a ton of money, because there are idiots in Los Angeles with their hands held out saying, I can make you a star, from
And
a
it's an
million.
expensive area as well, which
Yeah,
doesn't help.
exactly. But at the same time, if you make smart choices about how you spend your money for training, how you spend your money to find representation and to find your customers, if you treat your business, they call it show business for a reason, and if you treat your show business as a business rather than as a hobby or as a lark or as a maybe, if you treat it as, I'm going to build this business the way, a plumbing supply house builds their business, or a corner fruit stand builds their business, or a manufacturing place builds their business. If you look at your business that way, it's going to only help you. And I can't tell you how many people have come here and failed not because they're bad actors, although that happens as well, but because they're bad business people. And the inverse is true. People are successful here because they're good business people when they're not necessarily the best actor that comes in for the part. They just know how to work a room. They know how to technically work the camera. They're fun to have on the set. They don't cause problems. They know their lines. They hit their marks. They're technically really proficient and business-wise know how to work the system. But they're not necessarily the Academy Award-winning actors that are, thought of as the best actors in the world. So for me, that was a big eye-opener, and I just wanted to take a moment to just commend you on doing this for a living, and don't ever make excuses. Don't ever think that by saying that you're saying something that other people should think less of you about. And if they do, that's their problem, not yours. You're doing exactly what you set out to do. Earn your living as a performer. And for anybody who's listening and you want to do that, you should absolutely do that. But make sure you're safe. Make sure that you're financially safe. Does that make sense?
Yes, it makes a lot of sense. In fact, this actually kind of reminds me of what we see in the animation community for would-be voice actors or aspiring voice actors. They get into a lot of these fan projects and they think if they do many of these fan projects, they can just make a career in anime. And some people can, but most of them can't because they have a very immature mentality about it and they never have contracts to protect themselves or they don't know anything about unions or things like that. So I've seen examples of this in a very close-knit community, I would like to say, of aspiring fans who want to follow their idols.
Well, first of all, there's a couple of different currencies that you are using when you try to get into this business. When you're first starting, it's not about money, it's about experience and exposure. And what I mean by that is you want to get experience acting, and you want to get exposure so that you can attract the attention of casting directors, writers, producers, directors, etc. So for me, when I first moved here, I moved here in 2003 in Los Angeles. I followed the Abraham Lincoln method. Abraham Lincoln once said, if I had 6 hours to chop down a tree, I'd spend the first 4 hours sharpening the axe. And that's what I did. I spent 4 years training in acting, interning at casting offices, at being active in my union, volunteering, helping out as a reader, anything I could do to get into the rooms where the stuff was going on, right? I wanted to see what the best practices were, not just from actors who were auditioning and performing, but also from the people who were gatekeeping my career, the casting directors, the writers, the agents, the producers, etc. So I interned at an agent's office. I interned at a big agency. I interned at a casting director's office, at 5 different casting directors' offices. I wanted to see how they thought and what their attitudes were about the people that they were dealing with every day, the actors that were coming in for the roles. I would be in the room running the camera during auditions, and I'd watch really big-name actors make really stupid mistakes and lose out on getting the parts. I mean, they're only human. And then I'd see, both really big-name actors and really inexperienced actors doing really smart things. And it taught me an awful lot about what to do and what not to do. And then when I finally got around to it, I gave up radio so that I could do on-camera acting, and that was in 2007. And by the first part of 2008, I had booked Heroes. So I think taking the time and learning everything and realizing that your currency in the beginning is that experience. I did a lot of student films and a lot of independent films. And in fact, a student film is what got me the audition for Heroes. So if you're doing fan stuff, if you're doing fan fiction, if you're doing fan productions, if you're doing even volunteer work at studios that do anime dubbing or that do anything, that's exposure to the business. What you do with that and the footage that you get from that is really what's going to attract people to you. Make sure you put it on a demo reel, show them what you're capable of doing, and then, send it to the people who can hire you, and then get money for what you do. I mean, I realize it's sort of a step-by-step-by-step thing, but that's how it's done. Now, there's a million different ways to actually do it, but that's how it's done.
Hey, sometimes it's best to let people know the simplest answer and let them research what works best for them.
Yeah. I would counter that with sometimes people do research and then make really bad choices.
Yeah, that I could understand as well.
You know, I mean, I've had people who have come to me as a voice teacher, as a voiceover teacher, and the common refrain that I hear after their first class with me is, "I've learned more from you in the last hour than I learned in 6 months at, name a voiceover school here." And I think it's because I'm a working voiceover actor. I'm the voice of Mole Man on Hulk currently. I have just gotten finished voicing a really important audiobook called League of Denial. It's about the NFL concussion crisis. You may have heard in the news in the past week, the NFL settled a lawsuit for $765 million brought on by players who are suffering from brain damage due to their playing football. And this book, was just a joy to narrate because it's from ESPN, and it is really an inside look at what is happening to our aging football players because of the way the sport is being promoted and being played. And you get to do things like that, and you get to see the way the business works up front every day as a working actor. And then when I apply that to my teaching, it makes all the difference in the world, as opposed to somebody whose last job was in the late 60s and they're still teaching because they're not doing, right?
And there's
So,
been a lot of changes just in technology alone.
oh yeah. I mean, that's one of the things we talked about 10 years ago, when I first moved here. I was probably in my car traveling back and forth between my house and my agent's house, which is, I live in the valley and they're in Beverly Hills, and you literally can't get there in less than an hour or two, just because the roads are just so impassable. The freeways here are just awful. So I would drive probably 3 or 4 days out of the week to go and audition in their booth in their offices. And I had a perfectly good recording studio in my home, which is where I did my radio show on XM and Sirius. And, I would say to them, just send me the script. I'll MP3 it to you. No, you have to come in. You have to be have to be directed. Then one day there was a series of mudslides that took out the passes between the mountains, and they said, I know you can't get here. We'll send you this. Can you MP3 it back? And I sent them back the audition, and my agent called me, and she said, how do you get your mic to sound that good? That's awesome. you know and since then she won't represent somebody who doesn't have home equipment. And so the idea that you can grab an AT2020 USB Plus and use Audacity and a Mac Air and have a recording studio that is awesome is just unthinkable 10 years ago. And sites like ACX and Voice123 and Voices.com and VoiceOver Planet and these sites just didn't exist. Voice Bunny, they didn't exist, that long ago. Or if they did, they were a select few that knew about them and how to take advantage of them. And everything has changed. Actors on set will, especially older actors, will moan about the fact that casting directors don't messenger over scripts anymore. They send them PDFs via email, as though sending a PDF via email is like this Philistine, horrible advance in technology that is destroying the world. And then they expect us to put ourselves on tape with our iPhones. Well, let me tell you something. I booked a role on on Ant Farm on the Disney Channel because I landed in Boston for my girlfriend's reunion. We were there last year. When I landed, I got a phone call. I had a phone call message waiting from my agent saying, hey, I know you just flew to Boston, but you've got an audition. Can you put yourself on tape? So once we got into the hotel room, I set I got the printout of the thing in the hotel business office, had my girlfriend read the other lines, set my iPhone up on the ledge, on the mantle in the room that we were in, and shot myself, doing the scene, just as if I was in an audition space. Got a call the following Monday saying, hey, they want you to come in for the producer's session, which is the callback. And then I had a pen in me, and then I booked it. So, and that's not the only time that has happened, putting myself on tape. I actually took a whole room in my condo and outfitted it with stage lights and soft boxes and camera and a green background on the wall so that I could do my own stuff. And when I don't get invited to an audition, I don't care. I just put myself on tape if I want to. So everything has changed about this business. Getting the tape to them via Dropbox as opposed to having to burn a DVD, it's all different now. And if you don't understand how everything is working, you're just like going to lose. You're going to lose. And I don't want anybody to lose. I want everybody to win if it's possible for them to do so. So.
And now it seems
Yeah,
like most studios are going paperless too. It's like most people are using like their iPads or whatnot to even go through the script.
Yeah, well, I have an app called Rehearsal, which I think you were leading toward, yes?
Yes.
Okay, I have an app called Rehearsal, which does exactly that. Are you familiar with the show Smash?
I am, yes.
Okay, so Smash never printed a script. They never printed out a script. Deborah Messing, who played Grace on Will and Grace and was one of the stars of Smash, did an interview with a ecologically advanced magazine. I think it was called Mother Jones. And she was talking about the fact that they had estimated that they had saved 4 acres of trees because they hadn't printed out the goldenrod and the blue and the yellow and the green and the pink, new versions of the script. They had distributed the scripts as PDFs electronically through my app called Rehearsal 2, which is now an industry standard. It's an amazing little journey that I've had sort of on the side with this app that I created for myself so that I could go over my lines and I could be off book when I was in auditions. And it turns out that people really like it, and the people that use it are rabid fans. And I was just at brunch with a user this morning, and she said, I'll go to auditions, or I'll be on set, or I'll just be using it to learn lines when I'm somewhere else, and people will go, what's this? And I go into like demo mode. I show them everything about your app, that you can pull your script into it, and you can highlight your lines, and you can record your lines and record the other people's lines, and you can memorize your lines. You can be off book for an audition and for a callback and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, okay, that's great. Calm down. You're going to spill your coffee. So, but yeah, Rehearsal 2 is an industry standard, and that too provides real challenges for people who are like, I'm not going to spend $600 on an iPad just to be able to look at something that I could print for a penny on my printer. It's hard to say to them, okay, there are lots and lots of advantages of using the electronic version of things. You can leave notes for yourself. You can record things. You can't record anything on a piece of paper. I've got a little Olympus recorder that I bought back in the 80s, and it works just fine. So sometimes people are dragged kicking and screaming into, the even current technology. But yeah, that has certainly been another instance where technology and performance for me have sort of crossed paths.
I believe too the listeners out there can go check out your YouTube because there is a demo video on your YouTube.
5 minutes to rehearsal? They
Yes.
can. I will warn you that was produced 4 years ago, and it's a little outdated. The new version of Rehearsal has a lot more features and functions to it that aid the professional and student actor. There's new ways to get your scripts in. You can just sort of tap and hold and get a script in rather than emailing it. But for the most part, it's pretty indicative of what the app can do, and I really am happy and delighted that the app has been as popular as it has. You can search for 5 minutes to rehearsal, or you can just go and watch the video at rehearsaltheapp.com.
Well, luckily it's already been linked in the live chat, which is very good for you stalkers out there. For our stalkers who I promise are nice, is there any place where they can follow you on the internet,
Oh yeah, even
without
Christmas.
death threats or anything like that?
Yeah, Twitter. My Twitter handle is DH Lawrence XVII, so DHLAWRENCE XVII. Look up 17 in Roman numerals on Facebook or IMDb. I'm also on LinkedIn. I'd prefer if, when you LinkedIn, if you were doing it on a professional basis, fans, in general. I love talking to everybody. But if you want to ask questions about heroes and stuff, do it on Facebook or Twitter. If you want to talk about the industry, If you want to learn about voiceover, if you want to learn about rehearsal, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter. But LinkedIn in particular, I try to keep sort of, walled off to the professional side of things. And so far it seems to be working well. I've also got a Pinterest board. You'll find a lot of Barry Manilow there. You'll find a lot of puppy videos there. And you'll find, boards that have interest to the shows that I've been on. You can see my acting website is davids.com, davids.com. The voiceover site is votogogo.com. The actinganswers.com site is available, and then I have a couple of other sites that basically are industry sites. One is called befreetochoose.org, and it's for actors who I have an opinion about casting workshops that I use that site to sort of rant about. And I think that's it. One thing that people, this is the first time I've actually talked about this. I'm about to develop a new program for the web and for television called Cash Flow, How Business Makes Money. And it's going to be sort of like the show How It's Made. Do you ever watch that show?
Yes, probably religiously.
Today on How It's Made, screwdrivers, chicken pot pies, and surfboards. It's like I love that show. And so what I thought I'd do is make a show about businesses and how those businesses make money, all in the same kind of 7-minute segments. Here's how Chinese restaurants make money. Here's how online radio stations make money. Here's how supermarkets make money. Here's how movie theaters make money. Have you ever wondered how when you're in a movie theater on Tuesday afternoon and you're the only one in there and your popcorn and your Coke doesn't even pay for the air conditioning for 10 minutes, how do they make money, right?
No, it's a good question.
Yeah, all these businesses that consumers, engage with, when they want to know better how to get bargains, what their high profit margin stuff is, why things are so expensive, how they gather audience, things like that. And also for business people who want to get into those businesses, this is sort of like a little primer. Each one will be a little primer on what it takes, to be successful in a particular business. So I just started working with the company that produces another show that I'm on that's sponsored by Subway called The 4 to Niners. It's about kids that work at the mall from 4 to 9. And the two leads after high school, it's 4 to 9 after high school, the two leads work at a Subway. And Subway helped produce this content and paid for it. And so now they have embedded branding in the show, and I'm just being the goofy guard that keeps everybody in line, right? And it's a great job for me. It's funny, it's well written, it's well produced, it's well directed. And the company that did that, I pitched them on doing the show, and they said, yeah. So again, it's sort of from a position of operate from where you're going to be successful, and operate not from just, I have to figure out how to audition all the time. How about figuring out how to work all the time? And I really love helping people with that.
Well, it sounds like a really cool concept, and I have to say you've got my attention, and I can see from the live chat you've got their attention. So hopefully we'll
Great.
see the results of that someday soon.
Is there going to be a transcript of the live chat put up somewhere?
No, but I can get you one.
Yeah, let's do that.
Now,
That sounds great.
for the listeners, they're a little bit curious about, any other projects that you'd like to promote. Is there anything that we perhaps missed? Anything that they can pick up right now?
I don't think so. I think they air my episodes of Good Luck Charlie and Ant Farm every 20 minutes or so on the Disney Channel. So eventually you'll see me on there. Coming up in October, I'll be on The Mentalist. I'll be on the second episode of the season. And that was just a joy. What a great show that is. I love that show. And I do three things in life. I act, and that means both on camera, in studio, on stage, in commercials, whatever. I act, I teach voiceover, and I have this app called Rehearsal. And, it's a pretty exciting, lovely little life that I have going for me. And I really, this is this is like not just saying this. If it wasn't for the fans that show up at Comic-Con and show up in front of their televisions and in front of their computers and on Hulu and on YouTube and in my classes and online, if it wasn't for the people that thought what I was doing, what I am doing, is funny or poignant or creepy or evil or useful or profitable, if it wasn't for you guys all saying, hey, we like this, do more of this, none of this would be possible for me, and I am never going to be one to forget that. So, please know that when I say if you're going to do this, do it as a business, don't think that I don't understand just how important the audience is.
Well, I'm sure the listeners really like that. I'm not going to lie because I can see the live chat reacting to that one. Since we're near the end of this interview, though, we have a 91.8 The Fan tradition that I was hoping you'd be willing to participate in.
Okay?
Basically, we ask if you'd be willing to do a radio bump for us.
Yep.
Coolio.
We used to call them liners, but you call them radio bumps. And we
Yeah,
had a little
nowadays
we had
I've
a
seen
little
more bumps instead of liners. Like for liners,
yeah.
I think now you just say the station ID and that's it. I don't
Oh,
know.
no, no, no.
Seems
I
like
used to
it.
have people go, hi, I'm Nikki Six from Rat, and you're
Hmm.
listening to the David Lawrence Show on Q107 in Washington, right, or whatever. And we would have a little sheet of paper that would have all the liners on them, and we'd have them promote upcoming concerts and promotions and that sort of thing. But I don't have a piece of paper in front of me. What do you want me to say?
Basically, we ask if you'd be willing to say, "Hello, my name is." You insert your name. I do this. You can put whatever you want to put there. You can talk about any projects you're on, or you're an actor, or you're a teacher, whatever you want. We leave that up to you. And you're tuned into 91.8 The Fan.
Hi, this is David H. Lawrence the 17th. I'm an actor. I'm a voiceover talent. I have this app called Rehearsal, but more than anything, I am a huge fan of Jackie. And that makes me so excited to say you're listening to 91.8 The Fan.
That was perfect.
Yeah, I
I
know.
think you should do this for your day job. I think
You think I
you'd be
should do
great
that?
at it.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. That'd be awesome.
But no, thank you
Certainly,
so much.
I appreciate that.
Well, for the listeners out there, is there anything else you want to tell them? Any words of wisdom, dating advice, weather forecasts?
Dating advice and weather forecast? Wow, so disparate. No, first of all, it's always sunny and 80 here in Los Angeles. So
Lucky.
well, yeah, I know. Like in Vegas, I know it's like 80 or 90 or 100 during the day, and then it's like minus 40 at night. My home hotel, by the way, there is the Rio. I mean, I love the Rio. I love Caesar's Palace. I love I love coming there for CES and for Blog World and here's something. Last year when I was at Blog World before CES, there was a panel on pitching your video series to brands, and I was actually pitching cash flow to show people how the pitch is done, right? And it turns out that they really loved it. And there were people like, man, if this show gets on the air, I want to know about it, right? So I get to go back this year and say, hey, remember that show I pitched last year? Well, somebody bought it. So it's really exciting. Yeah, the weather here is always the same. And dating advice, I don't have dating advice. I have a girlfriend, and the operative thing there is, yes, I have a girlfriend. I know it's really hard for you to believe, but I do, and I'm really proud of that, and I'm really happy about that. And dating advice, find somebody who's awesome,
I
and
like
tell
that
them how you
advice.
feel.
I think that's the
Yeah,
best advice. Just be upfront and be awesome.
yeah,
And find someone who's awesome to match your awesomeness.
nice.
But no, thank you so much for being on the show today. We really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Did we actually say my name? I think we did at one point.
We did at one point, yes, and you did so during the bump.
Oh, there we go. That's right. That's right. Okay, fantastic.
So for any of the listeners out there that missed any of this interview, don't fret. You can find it on the website within the next few days, so keep your eyes peeled to 918thefan.com and your ears tuned to 91.8 The Fan, where we play everything you want and nothing you don't.